We established the fact that your resume must have highlights, that you're using granular words to tell people how much you know something, like extremely experienced, thorough knowledge, and then also you have to use the buzzword, which is the trend for your line of work. For example, if you're an interior designer, you need to definitely use the word AutoCAD. They want to see it, or even software is actually searching for it. If you're a graphic designer, Photoshop has to be there. If you're a computer person, the name of the computer product that you're comfortable with has to be there. If you're in business, words like project management, Microsoft Office, things like that, Excel, they have to be there. These are the things that they need to see. So once we have that, there is a section that goes under work experience. It's directly correlated to whatever you had said in highlights. Highlight is just one sentence telling people of your experience. That's the highlight. Now you have to expand on the highlight. So in this part, we're expanding on the highlight. Okay. So we're going to expand on whatever that we said as like a one sentence saying that I am experienced in this or not. Then in the work experience, I'm just going to expand on the highlights, and then it has to be chronologically backward, which basically means starting from now and going back. So when you're writing the chronological things, you have to start from current and go back. So start from current and go back. It's chronologically important because the employer can trace your path, basically like what you have been doing in 12 years ago, and then you kind of like carry it forward and what you're going to be. So they can trace your path and kind of like stamp your goal. Okay, that's one thing. But there is a much bigger factor in this. Reflects the change in technology. Proves your currency in the knowledge that you have. Okay, so for example, in my line of work, some of the products that I worked with in 2006, they do not exist, period. They don't. But the ones that they're still existing, if I haven't touched them since 2006, there is a big chance that I forgot them. Okay, now I'm telling you again, like this series should be into the brain of an employer. I always think about this. I'm telling you what I think as an employer when I'm looking at your resume, right? What is my ultimate goal as an employer? What do I want? So let's just put it here. It's like another thing altogether, like, ultimate goal of an employer. So I want up-to-date person, a consistent and loyal person. This is my goal. I want to have an up-to-date person. I want to have a consistent and loyal employee. And I want experienced person. Honestly, I don't want anybody who needs to learn. See, I have a problem, right? I have a problem that I have to fix right now. For me, training a person is dollar figure, right? Training a person means I am paying this person, but he or she still cannot do what he or she is supposed to do. Therefore, I need to train them. If I am training them, they're not really doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. They're learning. So I'm paying them for their learning. For me, I just want a person that is ready to work. That's the most important thing for me. I want a person that I sit him down and I'm like, do this, and he or she is like, fine, I'll do that, right? I do not want to spend a lot of time training these people. I mean, that's one of the things. The onboard, off-board is a big process. That's why businesses do not like to have a person to come in, work for 2 days and go. I don't want that to happen. So I want people to come in, they're ready to work, and I don't have to let them go, or they don't feel that they have to go because they do not know their job, right? So we as employers, we hate training people. It's just dollar figure that flies out of our pocket, okay? So if I can get a person who's ready to work, I do this. How can I get a job as a co-op person Okay? How can I get a job as a co-op person if all employers are looking for experience? They already know I don't have experience. They want to give me a co-op job. And I'm telling you, it's always a balance. It's always a dollar figure, right? If I go and hire an experienced person, they want me to pay them $80,000 a year, right? $80,000 a year. It's for a position that they already have enough experience, they're ready to go, they're gonna work, okay? As opposed to that, I can get somebody for $45K a year, but I spent some time training them, okay? So that means smaller companies that they are not well established financially, they actually eat this up. They're like, hey, I am saving $35,000 in return of training that person. So that's why co-op students are extremely popular for small businesses. They just love them, okay? And that actually means there is a huge opportunity in small businesses for people like you who's getting co-op, because once that company trains you and you know ins and outs of everything, they don't want to let you go. They're gladly sponsoring you to stay. You're thinking with your own brain because you're not an employer. Employers are looking for an up-to-date person who is consistent and loyal, experienced, but this is important. I want the person to be ready to work, okay? So how can I assure myself that somebody is ready to work? It's because the guy was doing the same job yesterday at the place that he's working right now. So that's why your recent experience is much more important to me rather than whatever you've done 12 years ago, okay? If I am looking for somebody with a Photoshop experience, if you're telling me in your day-to-day job now you're using Photoshop, it's much more effective than if you're giving me a resume that says, hey, you're in accounting right now, but 12 years ago you did Photoshop. Make sense? If you were an employer, wouldn't you think like me? I'm taking a look at two resumes. This one says great Photoshop skills 12 years ago. This one says medium Photoshop skills, but yesterday. Of course, I'm gonna go with this. It's easier. The skills that this person has, he's already engaged with it or she's already engaged with it. For me, it is more important that the current, like the recent or current experience that you have is much more important to me than the ones that you had long time ago. So you have to pay extreme attention to writing down whatever experience that the employer wants top in the chronological hierarchy. Imagine that you're applying for a job, whatever, and they're asking for a graphic designer who knows Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever, right? Like Photoshop, Illustrator, and all other software, okay? If you're applying for this job, you make sure the most recent work experience that you're writing has some Photoshop, some Illustrator, some graphic design in it. And perhaps I would beef it up. If it was me, I would make it bigger and bolder than something that I have done 25 years ago. If you're experienced in doing it, you basically change your resume for every little job that you're, like every single job that you're applying, okay? It's impossible to just have one resume and you keep applying for different jobs, unless you really don't want a job. I mean, I have a resume. I haven't been looking for a job for the past good 15 years, okay? And to me, I don't care. I can do whatever I want because I am not really in need of a job. I don't want a job. I have one already. And in my day-to-day job, I do a lot of different things with different skill set. But for you, if you want to get a job as an entry level, it's really important how you organize your resume. It's the story of your life. It has to chronologically go down and there should not be any break in it. So the next thing is that do not have a break in between. Or if you do, you must have an explanation, okay? I give you an example. You would say, okay, 2021, you would say May 2021 till now, you were doing something. Then you go down and you say, you know, like August 2020 till May 2021, you were doing something else. And then all of a sudden, this is like what I see. So you say May 2021 till now, you were doing something. August 2020 till May 2021, you were doing something. And then all of a sudden, the next thing that I see, it's saying like, you know, January 2015 to December 2015. And then you did something. I see a huge gap here. What were you doing? What happened? What happened? And then I'm thinking why you were unemployed for a good 5 years or 4 years, like starting January 2016, like 4.5 years, you were unemployed. What is the answer, right? So I am searching. If I am interested in you, like I see Frankie has a very good highlight and it has a work experience and there is a gap in between, I am searching to see what she was doing in that gap. If I go down in the education and I see that she's been in a school, that's fine. She was just studying, right? So she didn't basically sit down and do nothing, right? She was engaged in something, schooling. She was improving personal development, professional development. She was engaged with that. That's a very good sign. But if I cannot find the school, then if you are extremely lucky, okay, I would contact you and I'm like, what the hell was happening? And there is like for ladies, it happens a lot. They just give birth and for a while they're just out of career. You know, like there is a lot of ladies that they are professional and then, you know, like they get married, they have a baby and they decide to spend some time with the baby. And that's the hardest thing to get back into the market. Because, you know, like you've been a professional 5-6 years ago, but there is a gap, 5-6 years in it. And a lot of people don't even call you to ask that question. They start wondering what was happening and they're not giving you the chance. There's like fraction of people, if they're really, really interested in what you were doing, they're just gonna call you back and they're like, okay, what about those 4 years? And then you're like, you know, I had my kid and then, you know, he or she had this difficulty and I had to spend whatever, but now I'm ready to come back to work, okay? So what we wonder as an employer is that why you didn't get a job then. The why is very important. Did you get fired from your previous employer because you were stealing from them and then you couldn't do anything for 4 years? Did you break something? Is your negligence caused harm? We don't know. We need to figure out why is it that you're not there. So if you were on maternity leave or whatever, if it was me, I mean, it's just so hard to believe that I'm getting pregnant because I don't, but if it was me, I would actually put it in my cover letter. I would say like during these 4 years, I did take a break because I was just growing my kids or whatever. At least I would point to it. Okay, so people's brain do not wonder. We're just thinking, okay, you know, like she was a professional and then she did get back to a job or whatever. The hardest thing is what happened for this person in August 2020. Like after being unemployed for 4.5 years, somebody decided that they would give them a chance again. It's really difficult. Even if you think you're a hotshot, you're shining, you're like a star. Even for you, getting back to the market is really hard, okay? Considering the fact that in some line of work, getting back to the job is next to impossible. If you were a computer scientist and you did not work since 2010 and now, there is not even one product that remained the same. Like if you graduated in computer science in 2010 and you never worked after that, chances are you don't know anything whatsoever. I'm not going to give you an opportunity to work for me, right? So make sure that all the time that you're putting there is accounted for. Try to go chronologically from now and go down. Now, the biggest question is, you know, I spent a lot of time in school and those people that they're very young, I had a situation like that. I had a Japanese kid, very, very talented. He took game programming with me and he was fresh out of high school. Like he was 18, finished in Japan, came to Canada, studied 6 months of English with us, and then started the game programming. Extremely talented. He did super well. When the time comes for resume, he's like, I don't really know what I say. I mean, I didn't do anything. There is no real experience. Okay. And you may find yourself there, just like what Ali was mentioning, Ali Kuyan, you may find yourself in a position that you don't really have a strong knowledge. So you know how I solved that problem? I just sat down with him and I'm like, well, you went to the high school to train for computers. Like he went to one of these vocational high schools that they teach him stuff. And then I sat down and I'm like, write down for me what you were doing in the first year of high school. And then he just sat down and he thought, and he's like, yeah, you know, we did this and this and this. And I'm like, any project that you ever did in grade, 10, did you do any project? He started thinking and he's like, yeah, we actually wrote a clock and we did this. And I'm like, okay, write it down. That's your experience. All of these projects that you're doing for your classwork can be considered an experience. You're just putting it there. You're just saying, spending time at school, but these are the projects that I've done. I worked on this, I worked on that. Like I created a game, a small little 2D game, but I did create a game. Like all these people that they're going to game programming with me, I just get them to make games. It could be as stupid as a tic-tac-toe game or, like a battleship game or whatever, but it is a game. It's something that you've done. If you don't have any ammunition in your pocket, you might as well start throwing rocks. You need to have something. Evidentiary thing, make me believe you. If you're not telling me anything, you're just telling me extreme experience in Photoshop. Can you see how ridiculous it's gonna sound? In your highlights, you're telling me extremely experienced in Photoshop, but in your work experience, I do not see anything that you have accomplished with your Photoshop. Then I wonder, why are you thinking that you're extremely experienced? You need to think and get into what they want, not what you think. Does that make sense? Once that connection is established, once you can figure out what they want, then you can make your resume in a way that backs it up. And I guarantee you start getting phone calls.